Okay, guys, today I'm going to do a lecture on Abraham Maslow. I broke it up into two parts because it's kind of long. He's one of my favorite people, but here it goes. He's a humanist. If you've been in my intro class, humanism, Carl Rogers, and Abraham Maslow, one of the ideas had is that they kind of rejected this notion of original sin, that we're inherently bad. Some religions have this. I know a lot of other religions don't, but I kind of grew up with this idea that you're inherently bad. And so they have this idea that people are inherently good. And a lot of new religions are based on this, but this is the idea. Sigmund Freud has this quote, and it's very dark. If you take a look at it, I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole, and he calls them trash. And so a lot of people had this, kind of dark view of humans, especially in the field of psychology or even philosophy. And so the humanists kind of had this positive spin on things, and this is the subject matter I want to address today. Okay, so here we go. Instead of focusing on what's wrong with you, a lot of psychology has focused on this. Sorry, it's really windy out here. What humanists, wanted to do instead of focus on what your disorder is, and this is one of the problems I have with clinical psychology. We just every year come up with new ways that people are screwed up. Is what's right with you. There has to be something right with you. Instead of focusing on your problems, focus on your strengths. And so Abraham Maslow has this radical idea. Like I said, people are good, but has a big if on there. And the caveat is this, is if you satisfy their wishes or needs for affection and security, and if you were my other class, this is why I'm big on the lovey-dovey cupboard that I talk about from Freud's cupboard, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. Okay, so if I give a plant love and affection, which would be like water and sunlight, then it's going to grow. And if I don't, if I take away those things, then it's going to wither. And so this love and affirmation is what people are really seeking out. I think most people's problems really revolve around love and affirmation problems. I'm jaded, maybe I'm, speaking from my perspective, but I think a lot of people have these love and affirmation issues. Now, here's his hierarchy of needs. Most of you have seen these 5 needs. As far as the test goes, know these 5 different levels. Physiological sounds like physical. It's our basic needs, like animalistic needs. So our safety, to have a safe abode and not, be in a crime-ridden area, for instance. Then we move up to love and esteem needs, and finally the top, which is self-actualization. So this is what I wanted to talk about, is because I don't know if you can see this over here, but if you focus on the bottom, then you're always trying to satisfy things like an animal, and you move out of deficiency, like I don't have enough water, don't have enough food, don't have enough electricity. But if you're growing, instead of focusing on what you don't have, you're I don't guess focusing your energy towards these goals. And so this growth versus deficiency kind of take that people have. I don't have enough versus, oh no, I'm striving towards something. And Abraham Maslow is very big on this. Now, if we go back to Hinduism, these top levels, growth motivation or dharma and moksha, because you renounce yourself, renunciation of self. But when you focus on yourself, artha and kama, whether it's pleasure or whether it's social status, I'm always not getting enough, kind of like a crack addict. I can't smoke enough crack to keep me high. And so I work out a deficiency. I don't have enough. Versus growth is all about service. You can't get enough, rewards from serving others. It's like, a blessing that never goes away. And so hopefully you understand for the test the dimension here. It's the bottom of the triangle, animal kind of needs, and that's working out of deficiency. Top part of the triangle, more spiritual, working out of growth. Okay, so a lot of us move out of lack. Like, I don't have enough money, you know what I mean? And so I can focus on that, but it's deficiency motivation. And so, are you a human doing? You're running after things in a deficiency way because I don't have enough things? Or are you a human being already knowing that God has provided everything that you needed here in this moment? And so, since I like Abraham Maslow so much, I am fixing to show this little video, and it's coming up after this slide, and it's the video I usually show to my intro classes on Gethsemane, which is this little booklet I've written for freshmen and maybe high school seniors who are like kind of pondering what to do with their life, and it especially relates to your levels of motivation that Abraham Maslow is talking about. I hate to have to give this talk online, but this is my talk on Gethsemane, and I've written this book on it. And it's really a booklet, but it's geared towards, people your age, freshmen in college or high school students that are struggling with what they're supposed to do as far as their major or their career choice. So I classify this underneath our spiritual needs. So this is what I'm going to talk about next. But anyway, Abraham Maslow has this hierarchy of needs. Most of you have seen this before, but for the test, know these five things. Physiological, just think of physical. Okay, safety. Okay, so we have these animal needs down here, basic needs, physical and safety. I think the middle is social needs, belonging, love, tribal. Sometimes I get into this idea of tribal psychology, esteem. Sometimes the esteem, unfortunately, comes from the tribe. It should come from within, like personal best. But then eventually, this personal best leads up into self actualization. Okay, so that's what I really want to talk about is achieving your full potential because this is the definition. Did you come here to be 65% of yourself or 100%? Maybe you can't max out, you know what I mean? But can you leave it all in the field? And this is my contract with God. And Mother Teresa has a big quote about this in the book that I've written. I start off with it because it's like it's between you and God. It's how much effort you give to try to max out yourself. And so one of the reasons I'm a teacher is because of this movie, and it's based on a real guy. And this guy, right here, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but I have it on the next slide. But and Stand and Deliver is about this guy that's just teaching in the poor neighborhoods, of East LA, I think it was. And it's Jaime Escalante. And so I love this quote right here because sometimes I rag on parents, and also it's my responsibility too. If we expect kids to be losers, a lot of people like when they know that I'm a teacher say, "Oh, those kids and this thing." And there's like, but that's expectations. You were a kid, you know what I mean? I expect you to do more. I really do. And these kids, he expected them to do more. They just wanted to work like at the grocery store, to be a cashier. They went on to MIT, to Harvard, all these other places. And all these, rich white people think that they must be cheating on their exams and everything because they were Latino. But no, it was because Jaime demanded more out of them, and I'm demanding more out of you. And this is why I wish I was seeing you in person because I would light you up about this stuff. Okay, just like an acorn can become an oak tree, but if you limit expectations in this bucket, I stole this from Joel Osteen, it will only grow a certain amount. But if you put instead in this bucket, you put it down here, I'm really proud of this graphic. In the ground, it will get really, really big because the expectations are bigger. Now, I think I have my favorite quote right here, Spike Lee. It has been my observations that parents kill more dreams than anybody because they limit you. Oh, honey, you can't do that. Get in the small bucket. And so I'm always saying, F that shit. It's like you need to get into a bigger bucket. I'm your bigger bucket. I'm calling you out right now for that bigger bucket. This is what I came to do. This is what I'm here for. And if I check out of the planet and because of God's will, I want you to know this about, why I'm here. Okay, so I've written this book. You can go on to Amazon and get it, but I will give you a free copy. You don't have to go buy it, but it is out there. It's right here. You can see if you look up Gethsemane Principle, you have to put principle in there, maybe my name too. But anyway, it's out there. I don't care about that. Here's where I start. Albert Einstein says everyone is a genius. He didn't say like most everyone. He didn't say some people are. He says every single person. That includes the person that has autism or Asperger's. Okay, so I'm like, I don't think God makes mistakes. But if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will think it's stupid. Have you been thinking you're stupid? Because I'm here to light you up. I'm here to say Albert Einstein says you're a genius and you can do what you want to do. And when I talk about this, I talk about your major.
I mean, what you're supposed to do with your life. Is your life about serving yourself? Some of it has to be, taking care of yourself. Or is it about serving others? Because to me, it's about serving others. Yes, I get abundance so that I can be a lender. The Bible doesn't say don't be a borrower and that just ends the story. It says, lend and not borrow. And so I want to have abundance or have a career that has a purpose, dharma, service, so that it goes back out to other people. And so this leads into your major. Your major is kind of like your marriage. You just wouldn't willy-nilly marry anybody. Same thing about what you major in. You have to like really give it some thought and consideration. And so I think sometimes you might come into this dilemma. I did. Maybe you won't come into this dilemma. But when you start to pick your major or your career, your calling, am I going to pick a life of purpose or comfort? Because sometimes you can punk out and go over here into comfort. But I think you should come into purpose. This is why I love Father Andre. This is why I love priests, but I'm not going to go off on this right now. But I think you should come into purpose. I have this thing, I just put it up from the Pope. It says, the world's telling you to pick comfort. It's telling you money, power, fame. God's telling you, service, humility, and what the Pope says is you do the choosing. Here's the choosing right here. That's why I love him. You might not like him, but I do. Okay, so I start off with the parable of the talents. Sorry about the Judeo-Christian background, but this is in my book. And I'm a teacher of psychology of religion. So in the parable of the talents, there was a king, just like we have a king, Allah, Brahman, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. I don't care if you call him House. You know what I mean? But he has bestowed upon you certain talents. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, hopefully, and 2 feet, and you can like talk and walk and take this class. And so I have to remember this. He has bestowed on the table certain talents for Tim. And so these talents that he has bestowed upon me, like in the parable, there was one man that got, I think, five, one man that got two, one man that got one. So there was like differential talents, just like within our universe of people, but everybody has a talent, at least one. But what happens? He sends them out into the world, just like when you were born, you were sent into the world to use your talents. And then when you were called home, when you die, this is the way I believe, then there will be a reckoning. There was a reckoning with the king. I don't care what the king is called, but the man with five said, I made five more. He was very happy because the man maxed out. The second man says, well, I had two, wasn't as talented, but I made two more. Maxed out. The third man says, I knew you were a demanding king and that you would be mad at me, and so I went and hid it. And the guy goes, well, you didn't even put it in the bank for interest or anything else. It's like, why wouldn't you like do something with it? Now how am I supposed to reap where you haven't even planted the seed? And so he curses the, third guy. And you can go into the scripture. I usually have the scripture, here, but I'm sure you're not much of a scripture freak like I am. Okay, so anyway, it's all about reaping what you sow. The king can't reap anything if you don't sow something with the talents he's given you. Stewardship. Even in Muslim tradition, there is like, the zakat and the salah. Well, the salah is the prayer, I guess. But the zakat, whatever one is like, you have to like give. You know what I mean? Muhammad talks about, if you give everything to yourself, it's stagnant. But the reason we call money currency is because it flows. It should flow out, which is the same idea I've been talking about. Stewardship. Okay, this is I call him Osho. I think this is the same name. But he says my own experience is that everybody is born with a certain talent, and unless you live out that talent to its fullest, something's going to remain missing in you. I was living in corporate America making a lot of money, lots of money compared to like what I do here. Real cushy life, brand new house, built it from the ground up, picked every single thing out in it, and I was miserable. Something was missing. I had to give it all up. Everybody thought I was crazy, and that's why I'm your teacher. That's why I'm your teacher, is because I gave it all up, all of it for you, because I love you. So, Gethsemane, this is why I talk about it. I can't even believe it here because I had just lost it a couple of days ago because I'd really, really been struggling. I've been in Gethsemane and it's Lent right now, and this is why I love Easter more than Christmas because everybody can celebrate. But in Lent, you have to understand the choice that, whatever, if you believe like me, Jesus made. But even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane was so worried about fulfilling his destiny because it wasn't about comfort, it was about purpose. And his purpose was going to be painful, and he sweated great drops of blood. And he had to go there alone. had to go into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights too before he began his ministry. That's what Lent's all about. You have to go into the desert alone. And everybody has this moment. This is what the Gethsemane Principle is about. You're going to have this moment where you go into Gethsemane, your friends are not going to be there. It's the dark night of the soul, and you have to nut up and do the right thing. Because there's going to be a reckoning. You're going to go back to the king and say, well, I didn't max out. I 40%ed it. That's not good enough. You don't have to do 100%. We're not Jesus, but you have to do at least max out, leave it all in the field, even if you lose the game. And so in the Garden of Gethsemane, I hope I have this on here. Jesus has this moment of weakness, one of his two moments of weakness that I talk about, in my other class. But the first moment is, can you take away this cup? And the symbology of the cup, we talk a lot about it in Catholicism. But anyway, can you take away my burden, my cross? I don't want to do it. I'm scared. My 1, 2, 3 chakras are kicking in. I'm a human. Serpent in the rainbow. The serpent comes to him. Serpent in the rainbow. And the very next instant, what does he do? Kabam! He says, nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. This is the moment that he comes in and he talks about it. And so this is the moment, he steps into his destiny and says, I don't care if it's going to hurt. I'm going to do it. And this is what I think you have to do. The world's going to tell you easy, easy, easy way. Those are false prophets. I am the real prophet, at least in this sense, because I speak for the real prophet. In my terminology, it seems like that we have to be doing something different than serving ourselves. And so, as we go through, one of the people that I love is, a spokesman for God, prophet, that's what it means, is Martin Luther King Jr. When I lived in Atlanta, I lived pretty close to Ebenezer Baptist Church, real close to Sweet Auburn. I love him to death, and he gave a sermon exactly on this back in 1957. I think I have the details down here, and this is part of the excerpt from the sermon. And he says, this is the test of your life. This is in my book. This is the test. There's not like 18 tests. There's one test in your life. Are you going to move out from like begging God to take away from your circumstance to saying, I understand it's your will for me to do this, Timothy, this guy, because I'm not doing it right now. And it's like, I'm so scared. I just want to go back down to 1, 2, 3 chakras. But at a certain point, you have to say, nevertheless. Nevertheless, nevertheless, he repeats this over and over and over because Jesus says nevertheless. And so few people learn the nevertheless lesson because they live this life on, oh, take this cup away from me. I just wanted to go back to, well, Father Eric was talking about this. I just wanted to go back to normal. And as soon as it's back to normal, I'll just like do it all myself because I had it going, a pretty good thing going, God, until you had to take the wheel. And see, the tragedy is you can never get rid of it. This is why, even though I'm on antidepressants, a lot of times it's not going to medicate away the jihad, not going to medicate away your holy struggle. You're down here. You're down here in the holy struggle. It's meant to be like this. Okay, so a lot of times I'm doing this number. Even this week, I was screaming and yelling. It's like, why is this happening to me? Why? And then eventually you have to move over to like, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. The coronavirus is happening for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you on this videotape and being able to transmit my message out there on, a different medium. So a lot of times the things we see are bad are really the good things. The day I stopped drinking, that was a good day. You know what I mean? But it was a really bad day too. It was one of the worst days of my life, but it was also one of the best days of my life. And so you have these dualities. Now, back to Maslow's hierarchy, I think we get caught betwixt comfort and purpose, the serpent and the rainbow. Down here, physical needs, And if I think about this, a lot of times if we just had enough money, it's like recently because of my grandmother, I was able to pay off a lot of my debt, but it did, for a while it worked, but then it's like it all came back, the holy struggle. I don't know if y'all watch Wall-E, but like those people had those little things they floated around on. They were just going to make these techno cocoons around themselves, but they got all big and fat, and so they just checked. That's what we're going to in a way. And so this is from Bill Burr. He says, realize that sleeping on a futon when you're 30 is not the worst thing. You know what's worse? Sleeping in a king bed next to a wife you're not really in love with, but for some reason you're married and you got a couple of kids with. You got a job you hate, you'll be fantasizing about being alone. The life of purpose versus the life of comfort is the duality that I think everyone must face on this planet. Okay, so if you live in the comfort zone, you'll be like everybody else. You'll go as far as the crowd goes. This is what Albert Einstein says. But if you go different than the crowd, you'll go to places the crowd has never been. And this is what I've done. I'm living testament to it. It could have happened in my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't be your teacher. Okay, so Henry David Thoreau. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. What does that mean? They didn't actualize. They didn't max out. They didn't nut up. They didn't do it. And I'm here to tell you to do it. You can do it. Okay, so what is your calling? When I talk about this, this is an older movie, but I talk about Simon Birch. It's based on A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving. And so in this story, Simon has this disorder where he's very little bitty. He's actually a lot older than he appears right here, but he will never grow bigger than that. And so everybody thinks Simon is broken, but he goes around telling everybody how he's God's instrument. So there's two different ways to look about it, and this is why I always think that people that have disorders, and I've shown you a number of people like Cody Lee and others that have disorders like autism or Asperger's that I think are perfectly fine, that God didn't fuck up when he made them. And so Simon's not broken. He's perfect. God has designed him perfectly for his calling. But no one in the movie understands this, including the preacher. And usually I'll show a movie, parts of the movie right here, but for copyright purposes and length considerations, I'm not going to do it. But he has this perfect fit. And so towards the end of the movie, to summarize, there's a bus full of kids, and Simon's on the bus with a couple of adults, and I think it goes off into this frozen lake, and like the bus starts to fill up with water. Now all the kids start to panic, and maybe the adults get knocked out or something. I can't remember quite right now. But anyway, Simon, because of his physical stature, can relate to the kids because he's kind of kid-like, and he can calm them down. Plus, he can't get out of the bus. Like, no matter where he goes, like, all these people are going, we can't get out, we can't get out. It's like too little, too little. You know how school bus windows are, that door thing is. And everybody goes, nobody would ever fit through there. And at this moment comes Simon's shining hour because he says, it's me because I'm not broken. God made me real little bitty. And it's lucky for you because now I come into play. I'm the superhero because God has perfectly designed me for this moment. This is why God didn't screw up when he made you. He perfectly designed you. You just haven't gotten to this moment yet in your life and you're young. Most of the people that I'm talking to, and even if you're not, you're coming to this moment. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hearing this message from me. Okay, so Simon is this perfect fit in this situation. Perfect fit. Okay, so I started to think about Simon and how he said he was God's tool, God's instrument all the time, and that God has a toolbox. Sorry for the white God up here, maybe God's a lady, maybe a black lady, hopefully, because, like, I mean, another white man in charge, but whatever, don't get me started. And so in the toolbox, you know what I mean? Like, why would God need everybody to be a hammer? That's just silly. He needs a lot of different tools for different kinds of applications. And so maybe God doesn't go to the toolbox and pull out a hammer when he needs a screwdriver. And even if he needs a screwdriver, does he do a flathead or a Phillips head or Allen wrench or whatever he does? So specific uses, he tailor made. And if you're knowledgeable about biology and ecosystems, every animal and plant is tailor made for its environment. They're interdependent upon one another. And so if you just take a certain bug or a certain plant out of a region, you disrupt the homeostasis, the balance of that region. You are part of this region, this ecosystem, which is more of a God ecosystem, a cosmic ecosystem, even if you're atheistic. And within this cosmic ecosystem, everybody has a particular niche. Back to Albert Einstein. to wrap up with this particular section on motivation. Everyone has a niche. You have a perfect place in the universe. It will become actualized for you. All you have to do is try to max out. And if you don't believe me, then just wait. Your bus is coming. And how do I know? Because I have a perfect niche. I never believed in it. I just thought I would work in corporate America at a job I hated, make a lot of money, and retire. But no, at 53, I'm teaching and doing the thing I love because there was a niche for me, and everybody told me, don't major in psychology. You can't make any money or do anything with that. And you be the judge of it. Do I do anything with my psychology degree for you? Or should I have just stayed in corporate America and just made a lot of money and pick a life of comfort?